filthy, stupid, dumb boy named Jin Sunhoo finds himself in a very sussy situation as he tries to maintain his composure while being sussily treated by a woman he refers to as his mother. He wonders if she is truly alright or if his presence is causing her discomfort, but she simply assures him that everything is fine. Late at night, Sunhoo waits outside a towering building to collect his stepmother after her long day. His stepmom, Shinhye, is a woman of significant status, a star who shines brightly on magazine covers and red carpets, though the public often speculates about whether her real personality matches her cool and elegant exterior. As she leans on him for support in her slightly dazed state, her pride in him is evident, and she promises a nice meal together soon. Sunhoo simply focuses on getting her safely inside, noting that this is the third time this month she has made such a promise while being too busy to keep it. Once they arrive home, the atmosphere shifts as Sunhoo tries to get her settled. Shinhye falls into a deep sleep on the couch, leaving Sunhoo to grapple with his wandering thoughts and the sheer difficulty of maintaining a professional distance. He feels a mix of guilt and fascination, wondering what he is even doing as he lingers a moment too long, his heart racing at the sight of her. He eventually catches himself and realizes he needs to step away before things become even more awkward. The quiet of the night is soon broken by the arrival of another family member who has just finished a demanding workout. Miso is a dedicated athlete, a golfer who has spent her life perfecting her focus and her strength. She is far less gentle than her mother and immediately calls Sunhoo over to the home gym area. She reminds him that he joined their family as an outsider when he was only 6 years old, and she makes it clear that she has been observing him closely. Miso does not hold back her observations, stating firmly that she saw exactly what was happening in the living room earlier. She tells him that she will not stand to see their household ruined by his lack of control and accuses him of being a disgrace. Sunhoo tries to defend himself by stating they are simply family, but Miso is convinced that his current state of mind makes him a risk to the peace of the home. She worries about what he might do if he continues to feel so frustrated. Before the tension can reach a breaking point, the house is further complicated by the appearance of the other sister. She is equally comfortable around Sunhoo, perhaps too much so, as she insists on a foot massage to help her fall asleep. Sunhoo finds himself caught in a loop of being the helpful brother while trying to ignore the constant distractions his sisters present. He eventually notices that she has fallen asleep right there on the furniture, making the situation even more uncomfortable. When Miso returns to find him still attending to their sister, she decides that a different approach is necessary to keep him in check. Instead of just lecturing him, she suggests that she should be the one to take care of his cardio needs to ensure he stays away from the rest of the family. She tells him that she is not joking and will help him deal with his frustrations herself. Miso is not one to let a golden opportunity go to waste, telling Sunhoo that he should appreciate her offer while it stands. She explains that since he seems to have no other options, he simply has to accept her help to keep the peace in the house. Sunhoo is completely frozen, trying to process if this is all some elaborate prank, but the look in Miso's eyes suggests she has never been more serious. He tries to tell her that this joke has gone way too far, but Miso has already made up her mind and does not particularly care what he thinks about the situation. In a move that leaves Sunhoo wondering if he has accidentally fallen into a dream, Miso hands him the very item she was just wearing for cardio. She tells him to use this and find some cardio relief while thinking of her doing cardio, which is a request so sussy it leaves him entirely speechless. She explains that she will handle his frustrations for now, so that he does not go around looking at her or the other family members with sussy intent. This is especially important given her status as a famous idol, where her public image and the family's reputation are always on the line. The rules of the household take an even stranger turn when Miso informs him that he must report to her room every single night for an inspection. Sunhoo is horrified at the thought of a nightly check-in, but Miso holds all the cards, threatening to tell their mother exactly what kind of person he is if he refuses to cooperate. Realizing that he is thoroughly trapped by her logic and the threat of being exposed, Sunhoo reluctantly agrees that he can manage the task. Back in the solitude of his room, Sunhoo finds himself surrounded by the high-definition reality of Miso's career. He scrolls through her professional photos and interviews, realizing that being the stepbrother of a superstar comes with a very specific set of distractions. He follows her instructions and finds that his imagination is more than capable of keeping up with her demands. However, once the moment passes, he is left feeling like a truly irredeemable person, staring at the evidence of his own lack of self-control. True to his word, Sunhoo eventually makes the long walk of shame to Miso's room to deliver the required items. It is late at night, and he is desperate to keep the encounter quiet to avoid waking anyone else. Miso greets him in her lounge gear and takes the delivery with a surprising amount of enthusiasm. Noting the impressive results of his session, she even tries to play a bit of a psychological game, suggesting that his actions prove he wants something far more permanent and serious with her than simple family ties would suggest. Sunhoo tries to deny her theory, but it is hard to be convincing when she is holding the proof of his interest. Just as Sunhoo thinks he might be able to catch a break, the younger sister arrives to remind him that he is still the designated household massage therapist. Hana complains that people are focusing too much on her legs in her latest video and demands that he help her relax with a massage. Sunhoo points out that he just did this for her recently, but she insists that this needs to be a daily occurrence. The session is anything but relaxing for Sunhoo, as Hana's vocal appreciation for his skills makes him incredibly nervous about who might be listening. The pressure continues to mount as Hana becomes increasingly clingy, demanding ice cream and dinner dates while bombarding him with texts during his rare moments of free time. Miso eventually catches him watching one of Hana's videos and decides that she needs to reassert her dominance. She hands him a new personal item and tells him that if he needs to cardio relieve himself, he should be focusing strictly on her rather than his younger sister. Sunhoo is overwhelmed by the constant tug-of-war between the two, realizing that his life in this house has become a permanent state of awkwardness. In the final moments of his long day, Sunhoo retreats to his room to handle his latest assignment from Miso, but he makes the fatal error of leaving his door unlocked. Hana bursts into the room, complaining about him ignoring her calls, and immediately spots the item in his hand. Sunhoo is left in a state of absolute panic, realizing that he is about to have a very difficult time explaining why he is sitting in the dark, holding his sister's cardio cloth. The movie theater outing with Miso is supposed to be a simple outing, but Sunhoo finds himself sitting in a dark corner, trying his best to focus on anything other than how his sister is leaning into him. Miso reminds him that they used to do this quite often back in the day, and wonders why he is acting so startled by her presence now. She points out that, since they are tucked away in the corner seats, they can afford to take off their masks and hats and act like a normal couple on an outing. Sunhoo struggles with the realization that the movie they are watching is far more sussy than he anticipated, leaving him to ponder the irony of being on a sussy movie outing with his own sister. Once the film ends and they step out into the lobby, Miso is in high spirits and tells Sunhoo that he should be more thankful that she chose to spend her precious day off with him. Sunhoo, being the ever-responsible brother, suggests that she probably should have spent this time with her actual friends instead of being stuck with him. Just as he is about to lecture her on idol safety, the atmosphere shifts as the people in the lobby start to notice Miso's striking appearance. She suddenly realizes, with a surge of panic, that she left her mask and sunglasses back at the theater seats, leaving her completely exposed to the public eye. The whispers from the crowd grow louder as fans recognize her as the famous idol from the group Spring, and someone boldly asks if the man standing beside her is actually her partner. Sunhoo is paralyzed with fear as he wonders how they are going to get out of this scandal, but Miso quickly snaps back into her celebrity persona. She denies the relationship with a flustered expression, but her voice betrays a certain level of stress as she realizes that their secret outing is about to become a headline. Sunhoo eventually wakes up from the stress of the day in a much quieter setting, realizing that he has passed out and is now under the watchful eye of his other sister. He initially confuses her for his mother, but he quickly sees that it is the sister who usually stays glued to her gaming computer. She informs him that she actually had to withdraw from her important match because of his fragile health, and she is clearly not happy about the sacrifice. Sunhoo immediately worries about how his mother and Miso are taking the news, but his sister tells him to shut it and focus on his own recovery for once. She admits that she feels a certain amount of guilt for the situation, realizing that her previous efforts to keep the siblings apart may have inadvertently pushed Miso to be more forceful with Sunhoo. Sunhoo reflects on their complicated past, remembering how she used to be quite a bit scarier back when he played the piano, often threatening to break his fingers if he didn't stop. He decides to be the bigger person and offers her a comforting head pat, telling her that he is used to the chaos and that she shouldn't blame herself for his current state. This rare moment doesn't go quite as planned, as the head pat leaves her completely flustered and blushing. She quickly transitions from embarrassment to anger, telling him that he is incredibly annoying for being so forgiving. She pushes him back down onto the bed and informs him that she is frustrated with how easily he lets Miso lead him around. She decides that if he is going to be so susceptible to his family members' whims, she might as well be the one to keep him occupied from now on. The situation in the room reaches a frantic pace where the participants are completely lost in the cardio moment and unaware that their privacy is hanging by a literal thread. The sounds of their cardio activity are being broadcast through a phone that was accidentally left active, creating a very risky situation right in the heart of the house. Shinhye and the younger sister happen to be standing nearby and are immediately stopped in their tracks by some very unusual noises coming from the device. Shinhye is visibly confused because the rhythmic squeaks and muffled gasps sound suspiciously like her own family members in the middle of an intense struggle. She realizes that something very strange is happening and wonders if she should be concerned for their safety or perhaps their sanity. Just as the mother is about to investigate the source of the noise, the younger sister realizes that a massive family action is about to erupt and moves to intercept. She quickly snatches the phone away and puts on her best acting face, confidently telling her mother that there was absolutely nothing to hear on the line. She suggests that the house is probably just making some odd noises, or that her mother's imagination is working overtime after a long and exhausting day. Shin-hye remains somewhat doubtful because she was almost certain she recognized a specific voice through the speaker. Later, while the rest of the house settles down, Miso sits alone in her room and reflects on the utter chaos that seems to follow every single interaction in this household. She wonders what exactly her brother and sisters are up to in the dark, completely unaware of just how close the entire family came to a very awkward and public disaster. Sunhoo's morning begins on a rough note as he reflects on a night that felt like an endless marathon of physical cardio exhaustion. Just as he starts to recover his senses, a knock at the door reminds him that his next appointment is already waiting for him. He finishes his duties for the day and prepares to head home, acknowledging that his lifestyle has definitely started to take a toll on his appearance. He catches a glimpse of his own reflection and realizes he looks completely drained, which is hardly surprising given the unique demands of his current situation. When he finally steps through the front door, he is immediately intercepted by his mother, who seems to be in a state of high alert. Shin-hye does not even give him a chance to put his keys down before she is fussing over him and checking for any signs of injury or pain. She is still clearly shaken by the fact that he was hospitalized recently and feels a deep sense of guilt for not being there when he needed her most. Sunhoo tries his best to maintain a composed exterior while his mother holds him close, but the intensity of her concern makes him feel incredibly awkward. He eventually has to peel himself away, claiming that he is far too ashamed to face her in his current state and desperately needs to catch up on some sleep. As Sunhoo retreats to the safety of his room, Shin-hye decides to make up for her absence by handling some of the household chores. She sighs as she loads the washing machine, reflecting on how her busy filming schedule has led her to neglect her children for far too long. She worries that Sunhoo is lonely without a manager or a support system of his own and vows to pay more attention to him from now on. However, her motherly intuition is put to the test when she reaches into Sunhoo's bag and discovers a piece of cardio cloth that definitely does not belong to him. The sight of So-young's personal item sends Shin-hye into a tailspin of confusion and concern as she wonders how it ended up in her son's possession. She tries to convince herself that it must be a simple mistake, but her mind quickly wanders to sussy news reports about the problematic behavior of celebrity children. She starts to worry that Sunhoo might be developing some very unusual habits and feels a heavy weight of responsibility for his moral upbringing. Despite her internal panic, she decides that she needs to handle the situation with care and support rather than immediate accusation. Late into the night, Sunhoo is startled by a soft knock on his bedroom door and finds his mother standing there in her evening attire. She looks at him with a mix of sadness and determination, telling him that he is still a good son in her eyes, despite whatever secrets he might be keeping. She explains that she just wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation after being away for so long. Sunhoo is left feeling a strange mix of comfort and extreme tension as his mother moves in to assure him that everything will be just fine. Sunhoo finds himself sitting in a state of absolute terror, while Shin-hye sits beside him and looks at him with deeply worried eyes. He can only imagine that she has finally uncovered his secret collection and that his time in this house is officially coming to a very awkward end. She mentions how well he has recovered from his recent health scare, but then drops a bombshell by pulling out the specific piece of cardio cloth he tried so hard to hide. Sunhoo is convinced that he is an irredeemable person as he watches her hold the evidence of his interests and waits for the scolding of a lifetime. However, Shin-hye actually begins to apologize for being such a clueless parent instead of getting angry. She admits that her long filming schedules and busy career caused her to neglect him, and that she never stopped to think about how lonely he might be feeling during his most curious years. In a logic-defying turn of events, she decides that his behavior is simply a sign that he needs more personal cardio attention and offers to help him let off some steam herself. This unusual kindness brings back memories of why Sunhoo is so devoted to her in the first place. He recalls a stressful day back in school when his classmates were being incredibly rude about her roles as a villain in various movies. One student took the jokes way too far and made a comment that was far too personal for Sunhoo to ignore. He ended up in a full-blown physical altercation to defend her honor, even though it led to the school calling him a creepy boy and an orphan. When he returned home that day, Shin-hye didn't care about the gossip or the trouble he got into at school. She simply made his favorite meal of grilled galbi patties and told him that she would always be on his side because she knew her kind son only fought when it was absolutely necessary. She believed in him when no one else would, which only adds to the guilt he feels in the current moment. Back in the present, Sunhoo is realizing that her unwavering support has evolved into something much more intense than a home-cooked meal. He watches as she moves to follow through on her promise of personal assistance, leaving him to wonder if he is even capable of handling this new level of household service. Sunhoo finds himself slowly regaining his senses after an incredibly intense cardio evening, only to realize that his mother is still right there, tending to him with a level of care that borders on the blevis overwhelming. Shinhai gently cleans his sweat from face with a small cloth, and her expression is a mix of concern and something far more profound as she looks him directly in the eyes. She lets him know that if life in this house ever feels like it is becoming too much for him to handle, he should remember that he is always welcome to seek her out for comfort. As she makes her exit, Sunhoo is left lying there in a daze, while Shinhai herself struggles with her own internal conflict, realizing that she has been holding back her true feelings for a very long time and wondering what she was actually trying to achieve by doing so. The rest of the night passes in a blur of restless thoughts, leaving Sunhoo completely exhausted by the time the morning light hits his floor. He realizes that he hasn't slept a single wink, and his day only gets more complicated when he checks his phone to find a mountain of missed messages from his older sister. So-young has been blowing up his notifications with increasing levels of irritation, demanding to know why he isn't awake yet, and reminding him that his time is no longer his own. He quickly realizes that his slow start to the morning has landed him in deep trouble with the household resident gamer, and he rushes to get ready before her patience runs out completely. So-young is definitely not in the mood for excuses when he finally manages to make it out of the house, and she makes it clear through the phone that he needs to show his face immediately. Sunhoo heads to the meeting spot with a sense of dread, only to be surprised by how different his sister looks when she is actually dressed for the outside world. She stands by the car in a stylish outfit, mocking him for his lack of punctuality, and reminding him that the early bird is the only one who gets the prize. She notices him staring at her new look and tells him to quit wasting time and just get into the vehicle, leaving Sunhoo to wonder what kind of unpredictable journey the two of them are about to embark on together. Sunhoo found himself completely caught off guard when he finally met up with his older sister, So-young, because she had clearly put a lot of effort into her appearance for their outing. He couldn't help but wonder if today was some kind of special occasion while he stared at her stylish outfit and her brand new car. So-young was her usual prickly self though, and immediately began scolding him for being late because he was too busy admiring the vehicle. She told him that today was just like any other day and that he should stop getting ahead of himself. Once they were on the road, Sunhoo noticed that So-young seemed even more tense than usual, despite the nice weather. He realized that she normally hated driving and wondered why she was taking him somewhere herself instead of using a driver. When he tried to ask where they were headed, she simply told him to stay quiet and follow along without making a fuss. The atmosphere in the car was thick with a mysterious tension that Sunhoo couldn't quite figure out. Their destination turned out to be a high-end screen golf range where So-young decided it was time for a family sports lesson. She claimed that as a pro golfer, it was her duty to teach her younger brother the proper way to swing a club. However, her method of teaching involved getting incredibly close to him to fix his posture. Sunhoo felt his heart racing as she pressed against him to adjust his stance, and he began to feel that this was becoming a very sussy situation for a simple golf lesson. He tried to point out that they were too sussy and expressed concern that someone might walk in and misunderstand what they were doing. So-young was completely unfazed by his panic and informed him that she had actually rented out the entire facility for the day so they wouldn't be disturbed. She teased him for being so embarrassed that he couldn't even focus on the game and eventually decided they should take a break from their intense activity. They moved to a nearby cafe called Café Velour, where the table was quickly covered in an impressive spread of cakes and chocolates. So-young had swapped her golf gear for a hat and sunglasses to maintain her privacy as a famous gaming personality. Sunhoo noted that she didn't even like sweets and wondered why they were sitting in a crowded place surrounded by sugar. He felt a bit awkward being the only one eating while she watched him with an unreadable expression behind her dark lenses. Internal chaos was actually swirling inside So-young as she tried to maintain her cool exterior while her mind kept wandering back to their recent cardio sessions. She found herself blushing deeply as she remembered the intense moments they had shared, and she realized she was the only one getting flustered by the memories. Her frustration reached a boiling point, and she suddenly stood up only to accidentally knock over her drink and spill chocolate all over her expensive clothes. The clatter of the spill caused her sunglasses to fall off, and the people in the cafe immediately began to whisper about whether she was the famous player Jin So-young. Panicked by the looming public scandal, she bolted from the cafe and left Sunhoo sitting there in total confusion. He eventually realized he needed to find her and began a desperate search through the building to make sure she was all right. So-young had retreated to a private room to hide from the public eye and deal with her ruined outfit. She felt incredibly annoyed with herself for being so clumsy and ruining the mood she was trying to set for their outing. She assumed she had made a clean getaway and that Sunhoo wouldn't find her in such a mess, but she was startled by a sudden knock at the door. When she opened it, she found a completely exhausted Sunhoo who had managed to track her down by checking every single door on the floor. He collapsed to his knees in front of her, and So-young immediately worried that his health was failing again after his recent hospital stay. She asked if he was okay and if he had run into too many people while looking for her, but Sunhoo just looked up at her with a tired smile. He pulled out her expensive sunglasses and told her that he just wanted to return them since they were so valuable. He assured her that no one had recognized her and that she didn't need to worry about any scandals. This display of genuine brotherly care left So-young feeling even more annoyed because her pride was hurt. She realized that while she was busy planning their next sussy encounter, he was just being a helpful and worried brother. She decided that she couldn't let his innocent behavior go unpunished, and she suddenly pinned him down on the bed. She told him that he was being quite the teaser and asked if he wanted to be scolded for his actions. She finally admitted the truth that she had booked this room specifically because she wanted to engage in more cardio activities with him. Sunhoo was left completely speechless as she made it clear that her intentions for the rest of the day were far from innocent and that she was the only one who had been thinking about their next session all along. So-young was not about to let the momentum of the day fade away, and she leaned in to ask Sunhoo if he was ready for even more of their intense cardio sessions. Sunhoo found himself unable to say no and simply agreed to go along with whatever she had planned next, despite the overwhelming sussy energy of the situation. While the siblings were busy making plans for their room, the atmosphere outside was far from peaceful.